I figured we'd keep this little horrific Halloween celebration going with a look at the 1986 movie Trick or Treat. One of my viewers mentioned it and I thought it would be a fun movie to do, and when I noticed who was in it, I was even more excited, but not for the reasons I'm sure you're thinking. I mean, just look at this cover, Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne? I mean, they must be the stars of the film. Well, no. The movie is actually about a high school kid named Eddie Weinbauer, a bullied teen whose only outlet is through rock idol Sammy Kerr. However, after Kerr's death, a devastated Eddie is handed the only copy of his final record, which of course leads to some spooky shenanigans. De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, always the mark of quality. Oh, I can't wait to watch Trick or Ragman. I think someone got the title wrong. Young Eddie here is upset because Sammy's Halloween concert at the school has been cancelled. Eddie's a bit of an outcast. He likes to keep to himself mostly, except for his friend Roger, but he sure does fancy Leslie. Oh, well, that was awkward. You can't have an 80s teen horror flick without some classic 80s teen bullies. Or 35-year-old bullies. I swear, most of these guys look like they have a mortgage. You know, for a movie called Trick or Treat, I've seen more testicles than I have trick-or-treating so far. Oh, maybe the movie was supposed to be called Bagman. That would make much more sense. Of course, the girls have a camera on standby just in case something like this happens, but I guess Leslie is having second thoughts about the whole thing. Or she's horrified by just how pale Eddie's butt is. As shitty as school might be, there's nothing that helps keep a teen boy sane more than some heavy metal. Sammy was banned from playing his music because it was deemed to be too violent, too perverse. But isn't that the whole point of metal? Of course, this old bag is part of the reason he wasn't allowed to play.
Rock star Sammy Kerr, victim of a hotel fire, dead at age 38.
Oh no. I sure hope Eddie handles this well. Also, was it necessary to have the entire camera crew to point a camera at a TV? Alright, so Eddie doesn't exactly handle it well. Distraught Eddie meets with his buddy Nuke, a local DJ who was a classmate of Sammy's.
Dead or alive, it doesn't matter.
It kind of does matter. You can't exactly record music from beyond the grave, or can you? Nuke shows Eddie the last record Sammy ever recorded, which Sammy gave to him specifically to play on Halloween. Instead, Nuke gives it to Eddie as he already made a copy on cassette, which I'm sure will sound just as good playing it over the radio. Not in a million years would I ever believe Gene Simmons would just give something away for free though. Eddie's friend Roger meets him at school and he looks awfully familiar, almost like I know him from something.
Hi. You're Eddie, right?
Okay.
Alright, don't go creaming yourself yet, Eddie, just relax. Leslie hands him back his butt photo and then invites Eddie to a pool party. And you can always trust the popular girl when she invites you to something. What is up with the ragman? Eddie arrives at the pool party just in time for us to get some topless women into the movie. But uh-oh, it's the bullies again. Oh no, not a 5-pound weight! Although Eddie really does seem to struggle because of it. Leslie shows up to save the day, but where was she before all this happened, huh? Eddie's angry walk away while soaking wet is pretty damn hilarious though. Eddie's gonna get revenge on those bullies, but first it's time to rock out. Eddie, I think your place is on fire. So this is what happened to Sammy Kerr? Oh shit, I'm supposed to be on fire. You know, I'm not seeing why Sammy Kerr was so popular. You can't have a demonic record without a little backwards masking. The record tells Eddie he's the bait, or I think that's what it said. So he sets up a Home Alone style set of traps. Leslie tries to apologize for last night, and Roger's like, "Last night? You told me you were washing your hair." Eddie goes over to the bullies and tosses food right into Tim's face. I think that's fair payback for attempted murder. The bullies chase after Eddie in one of the funniest segments in the movie. The bullies think they have Eddie cornered, but nope, just the teachers. Tim really had more than enough time to see it was the teachers before spraying. Eddie tries showing Roger the backwards masking, but he's like, "Yeah, been there, done that." Later that night, Eddie starts playing with the record again, but now it's not just backwards masking, it's straight up talking to him. The record's gonna help him get revenge on his bullies, and Eddie has to go to classroom 66 the following day. Oh great, what do these guys want? Also, how did Sammy Kerr know they were going to find Eddie in room 66? If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, Eddie. Also, this counts as a second attempt at murder, no? Tim, don't you know you're not supposed to wear loose-fitting clothing around machinery? Tim begs Eddie to turn the machine off, but what about his friend? He just stands there like, duh, what am I supposed to do, boss? Tim runs off with his tail between his legs, but tells Eddie it isn't over yet. Eddie's mom goes into his room to put his clothes away and go through his albums. Impaler, Exciter, the Batman soundtrack.
Probably.
Oh no, how do you turn this scary music off? I'm glad that even in the 1980s, baby boomers didn't know how to work basic electronics. Later that night, Eddie makes a special little tape for Tim as a sort of peace offering. Meanwhile, his friend Roger just blatantly looks up a cheerleader's uniform, like he's not even remotely subtle about it. That night, Tim and his girl are at makeout point. Tim decides to give himself blue balls and leaves his date so he can take a leak. His girlfriend starts listening to the tape Eddie gave him, which releases a spooky green mist. I guess they had to find a way to get more boobs in the movie somehow. The mist is so spooky that it manages to put her bra back on after she's removed it. Oh, I didn't know ghoulies were in this. Tim runs back to his girl, but she's not looking too hot. Oh, gross. Oh, that Eddie's gonna pay. Ozzy finally makes an appearance, and he's just some evangelical reverend who hilariously hates metal. So much for being on the cover, I guess.
White power!
White power? I'm not sure you should be shouting that.
She's in a fucking hospital, man. You could have fucking...
Wait, she's alive? Her ear was melting off her face. Tim better watch himself though, because Eddie has spooky jack-o'-lantern powers. Tim wants Eddie to stay away from him because he thinks Eddie is into some weird shit. But you're kinda the one that started this, Timmy. Eddie confronts Sammy because he's starting to have second thoughts about the whole thing. He just wanted to scare people. He never really wanted to hurt anyone.
Leslie. Oh man, now come on now.
Sammy wants to go after Leslie now, and even Eddie's mom. I understand being an angry rock god, but what did they do? If Pepsi will do this to a record, just imagine what it does to your teeth. Oh no, it's Zool. Wait, and Pazuzu? Sammy Kerr just suddenly appears. Not sure why he waited 50 minutes to do so.
These evil people have just got to be stopped.
Oh, see, Ozzy. I'd love to see what that looked like from the audience perspective. Sammy disappears back into Eddie's speaker, so Eddie destroys all of his electronics to, I guess, make sure Sammy can't come back. Eddie calls up Roger to tell him he needs to go find that haunted tape he gave Tim and destroy it. Now, why doesn't Eddie just do this himself, you're asking? Well, that's because of his little temper tantrum, he got himself grounded. So no sneaking around stealing tapes for Eddie.
I'm gonna get killed. I'm gonna die.
What is even the point of dressing all in black if you're gonna break into this car in broad daylight?
I owe you my life.
What's the big deal with the tape?
It's infested with ghoulies. Instead of destroying the tape like Eddie asked, Roger decides to listen to it, which goes about as well as you'd think. Sammy tells Roger he needs to play that tape tonight or he's gonna die.
What else it
I think Sammy made his point. That night at the Halloween party, Roger brings the spooky tape so we can make the old switcheroo. But how dare he stop Houdini? Haunted House of Rock is a great song. 2/3 through our movie and the star of it all is just sitting around, while a side character does all the work.
Trick or treat, small feet.
Come back tomorrow.
At least there's finally a trick-or-treater in a movie called Trick or Treat. Leslie calls Eddie to ask if he's coming to the party and let him know her costume is slowly unraveling. All Eddie seems interested in is the music playing in the background. Ladies, we're kind of dumb. You need to give way clearer signs.
Whoa.
I don't know, I think Ric Flair does it better. Eddie tries to drive to the party, but Sammy can apparently take control of any electronic device or machinery and attempts to drive over a poor ghost. Eddie's insurance premiums are gonna go through the roof. I love you can see the blockade used so they can shut down the road for filming. Eddie barely survives nearly driving off a bridge when the director of the movie decides to cameo as one of the teachers. Not the best place for Humpty Dumpty. Absolutely no one in the band questions what just happened to their lead singer slash guitarist, but Sammy needs to work on his lip syncing. You know, I don't know what could be so harmful about a little rock and roll. I guess blasting people into a puffball of smoke could be harmful. Zap! Oh no, not Humpty Dumpty! Sammy continues his teleporting and zap fest when the movie decides it needs a little skin, so we need Leslie without a shirt.
What are you doing here?
Oh no, he's gonna get kinda rapey now, isn't he? Eddie arrives and tells Roger to throw the breaker box because it'll stop Sammy, here at least. Oh no. It sure would be a shame if something awful happened to Tim. Eddie finds the tape and smashes it, but I think the cat is out of the bag now. He then finds Tim and tries to save his ass, but Bully's gonna bully. Here comes the wet willy. You know, in a horror movie, you always want the dickhead to get the best death, but that was weak. Eddie and Leslie find the circuit breaker, but it's locked, so not much they can do with it. Also, this may just be me, but when Sammy teleports in, does it make the same noise as the Ghostbusters proton streams? Eddie and Leslie are cornered by Sammy when Roger comes in to save the day. And I guess he's dead. Oh, thank God he's still alive. He still has very important work to do in the 90s. Hey, I had that skeleton. The kids at the party tell the cops Sammy Kerr caused all of this, but because he's supposed to be dead, the cops think the kids are on drugs.
Hey, you! Hold it! Hold it right there!
One random kid points out Eddie is being responsible, but he wasn't even there when all this started. Since Leslie's life is now in danger as well, Eddie explains to her how all of this went down. Eddie suddenly remembers that Nuke will be playing a recording of the album tonight at midnight. However, he's a little too late. I really hope this is like the ending of Halloween 3.
Stop it! Stop it!
A police officer notices the teens run off and calls it in, but he's got a little Sammy to deal with first. Yeah, use a taser on a guy with electricity powers. This movie has some Looney Tunes-like logic. The two kids make it back to Eddie's place and start smashing up all of his electronics because Sammy can transport through them. That toaster gave him bad stock advice anyways. Eddie looks for his mother's car keys because wrecking his wasn't good enough. Sammy cuts them off in the bathroom, but Eddie's house is full of kerosene-soaked doors. No, this is all wrong. Electric types are supposed to be strong against water types. Sammy manages to free himself from the bowl and takes Eddie's mom's car without even asking. It's alright though, because there's a perfectly good police car sitting right here, and I'm not sure he'll have much use for it anymore. Now they're driving off in the car, but can't Sammy just appear in it? They make it to the station, but they're way too late. The tape's already playing and Sammy has it protected with his little spooky electricity. Eddie comes up with a plan which involves Leslie counting and Eddie getting the f*** out of there.
Maybe I'll see you later.
She did not look like she wanted that. While Eddie drives around, he shit talks a tiny radio, trying to get Sammy to appear.
How about that toilet, huh? You know, you looked a little flush back there.
And he's got jokes. Sammy appears and for some reason can't get past this little fencing. If he can seemingly teleport wherever there's electronic equipment, couldn't he just teleport through the car's dashboard into the front seat? Eddie drives the car right off the bridge and into the water below. But could he not just go back inside the radio and come out somewhere else? In any case, Leslie destroys the tape and Eddie survives a plunge that should have killed him. Eddie arrives at the station and I guess everything just ends happily ever after. Trick or Treat is a fun little movie that sort of loses steam in the last third. There's nothing better than a bullied teen getting revenge and then having to put an end to things once they start to go too far. But the revenge was kind of lacking. For a movie that is supposed to be R-rated, I really don't see why. There's a few quick shots of topless women, but there have been topless women in PG and PG-13 movies before, so that's not really a big deal. And there's almost no gore. Unless you count that brief shot of the girl's melting ear. All the deaths basically amount to a light show and then poof, they're gone. Outside of the brief nudity and some language, there's way worse on the YouTube Kids app. I laughed pretty hard when Sammy pulled the woman through the TV. Even though I've seen that moment many times, it's still pretty hilarious. Especially when Roger is cleaning up the mess afterwards. Also, what happened to the ghoulie? The creature was in one brief shot and then never seen again. Was that a manifestation of Sammy? Were they going to use the monster more throughout the movie and just didn't have the budget or time? It just seems like an odd thing to add for a single shot and then never have it appear again. Well, I kind of have an answer. The monster's name is Skeezix. It was supposed to be like a mascot for Sammy Kerr, kinda like Eddie for Iron Maiden. The monster was going to appear on Sammy's album covers and be on his merchandise and act like kind of a companion to him. Special effects artist Kevin Yeager, known for his work on the Elm Street series and Tales from the Crypt, created the puppet, and because the director liked it so much, its scene was actually extended. So how short was it before? Kevin had hoped Skeezix could be used in a sequel, but since the movie only brought in $6.8 million on a $3.5 million budget, a sequel never happened. Kevin himself appears in the movie as the band member Sammy kills near the end of the film. There's a lot of fun to be had with this movie, but the climax needed to be more over the top. They tried to have their Carrie prom scene, but it's nowhere near as good as that one. It's just Sammy zapping people with electricity and them going poof. I think as a character, Sammy Kerr is pretty cool, if his powers weren't so random. Sometimes he could just teleport through electronics, and other times he couldn't. If this movie had been a really big hit, I can imagine it would have gotten a sequel. I don't think he'd be Freddy big, but Sammy Kerr could have been a bigger deal in the right hands. Actor Tony Fields played Sammy Kerr. He's appeared in low-budget movies like Summer School and passed away very early at the age of 36 in 1995. He does a great job as Sammy Kerr, though he wasn't the original choice for the role. Blackie Lawless, the frontman for the band Wasp, was originally asked to play the role of Sammy, but he turned it down. The filmmakers were trying to get a real metal musician for the part, but no one wanted to do it because they felt it was taking one side of the heated heavy metal debate at the time, when in reality, the movie was poking fun of both sides. The role was also offered to Gene Simmons, but he decided to go with the smaller role of Nuke the Radio DJ, in honor of his childhood hero, Wolfman Jack. Mark Price played the role of Eddie Weinbauer, who is best known as Skippy from Family Ties. After Michael J. Fox managed to make this successful leap from Family Ties to the movies, Mark was hoping to do the same. Mark apparently was up for the lead role in the Patrick Dempsey-led movie Can't Buy Me Love in 1987. But according to Mark, his contract with Family Ties wouldn't allow it to happen. Mark also claimed that he was up against Keanu Reeves for the role of Eddie, which would make sense given that Trick or Treat and Bill and Ted were both produced by the same producers. The most interesting piece of casting in this movie for me though is Roger. Roger was played by Glenn Morgan in his one and only acting role. Now if you're not familiar with Glenn Morgan, well, Glenn is a writer responsible for some of the X-Files best episodes during its first 4 seasons. And when I realized it was him, and given the fact I have close to 100 X-Files videos, I had to talk about it. Glenn does a fine job playing Roger, but it's quite obvious why his acting career never really went anywhere. IMDb also claims he did some uncredited writing for the movie, but I can't find anything that would confirm or deny this. This movie has a second X-Files connection with its director, Charles Martin Smith. Charles is a pretty recognizable character actor and has appeared in movies like American Graffiti and The Untouchables. As for the X-Files connection, Charles appeared in the Season 2 episode F Emasculata as a doctor from the CDC who really doesn't know how to use PPE properly.
You're burning the bodies, why?
Trick or Treat was the first movie Charles had ever directed, but since then he's gone on to direct other projects like an episode of Space Above and Beyond, which Glenn Morgan created, and the very first episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Trick or Treat is a fun little horror film. It might be a little too long and could probably be trimmed by 10 or 15 minutes, but it has a cool villain, some neat special effects, and you get a little Halloween spookiness with all the decorations. But what are your thoughts on Trick or Treat? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're having a scary October and stay spooky.
Do you hear that?
Where is it coming from?